Now then, gentle listeners, coming at you with your bi-weekly dose of amplitude adjustment, it's the Strings and Things podcast. On this show, musicians come by to change their guitar strings and talk about all kinds of things. After we swap some stories and clean up the mess, the new strings get a workout in a special performance with our guest. This time we have Anthony Mullin from the merry band of headbanging hard rockers called the Blackfires. He's here to work on a very special Les Paul with a cool backstory, and he'll tell us how his PhD influences his musical efforts. Let's find out more about all of that and turn this over to our host, Patrick Grant.
Hi, Anthony. Welcome to this episode of Strings and Things.
Hey, Patrick. How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Hey, glad to have you. Want to reconnect with you for a long time, and I figured, this is a great way to sort of jump back in.
Yeah, since Tilted Axes, right? That's how we...
Tilted Axes, I met Anthony just a little over 2 years ago, December 2013, when, I can't remember her last name, but Rue?
Yes, from the music building.
From the world-famous music building on 8th Avenue. I wanted to broaden the reach of Tilted Axes musicians, and I partnered up with the music building that year. And she put me in contact with a lot of great folks. Those of you listening, Matt Grossman, we met at the music building for that experience. And then I met Anthony and found out a lot about his band, the Blackfires.
That's right, yeah.
So how the Blackfires been doing in the last 2 years? Look like you've been doing great.
Yeah, so I suppose after we'd met, there'd been sort of a change in personnel, you know, like with every band, I guess. That happens at some point. Bands, yeah. Didn't like each other's nail polish. I don't know what happened, really.
But they kicked you out.
No, thankfully I didn't get kicked out. I was, with Cheggy, the lead singer, the inimitable Russian lead singer that we have.
Well, I've heard people describe it as I had to fire the rest of the band. It's like, oh, you mean you got kicked out?
Right, yeah. That wasn't the case, I can admit. But yeah, since we'd done that, I think we, found the right kind of guys. It's not just finding one person. At that point, it was finding three, and not just great musicians, the personalities that would fit. And so we found these guys, all actually quite international as well. Sebastian's from Uruguay, Hector's from Costa Rica, and Joe's from New Jersey, which I've heard is international in some ways as well.
Well, everyone's international depending on the backdrop.
Exactly. For New York.
Can I just ask you, before we get back to that, where are you from?
I'm from Leeds.
You're from Leeds?
Yeah, so for those geographically challenged, that's in the north of England. The Who live at Leeds, I guess, is how other Americans have kind of said to me that they know it.
A lot of bands came out of Leeds.
That's right, yeah.
There's a whole synth rock art school scene that gave birth to a lot of synth pop coming out of the Leeds area, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Human League.
That's true. Yeah, sort of before my time, but you're right. There's a rich history there. Right. And then like more current bands, Kaiser Chiefs, The Music, who are not together anymore, but they were big for a time. The Pigeon Detectives. Kind of indie alternative. It's kind of a cool name, right?
You have to be, so you have to be indie with a name like the Pigeon Detectives.
But yeah, long story short, with the Blackfires, after that we were fortunate enough to win New York City's. We represented them for Hard Rock Cafe. It's like a worldwide battle of the bands. We won the New York thing.
Was that the battle between the different hard rocks around the world?
Yeah. And
so you represented the New York hard rock.
Yes, we did. So we won that, but then obviously didn't win the whole thing. Unfortunately, I think we were in the top 10.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be sitting here talking to me. No, I'm kidding.
So then we were top 10, and then, but thankfully a month after that got to open for Aerosmith, which is always nice. We've not done it since, but it certainly was an amazing experience. We got to be part of their Let Rock Rule tour in Russia. And then people started taking us more seriously. We were in Guitar World magazine after that. Did some showcases out in LA, toured a little bit, played a Loudwire Festival last year. We went on before Weezer on the Friday night.
You guys are better than Weezer.
I'm not sure. Different. I would say they're very successful. So I won't even touch
you can't
that one.
say it, but I'll say it.
Yeah, I won't touch that one. And then this year we're lucky. We're playing at Rockfest in Cadott, Wisconsin, wherever that is. I've heard Wisconsin is America's dairyland, so...
Yeah, they call them cheeseheads, actually.
Yeah, okay. We'll be hanging around with them. And we're on, I think, the Saturday at Rockfest. Joe Perry's band with Johnny Depp, the Hollywood Vampires, are headlining. So it's fun to be part of that. And then we're recording some new material in the studio, and we'll be releasing that. And playing around, supporting that.
Congrats.
Thank you.
Since I've met you, you've added a title to your name.
Oh, yeah. I've been called a lot of things, mostly by women, I guess.
You've become a doctor.
I did, yes. That happened. I have a PhD in clinical psychology. So
How do you feel about that?
I feel great about that.
Oh, that's great.
I like that. That's a good one.
I was thinking about that. I'd be so remiss if I didn't say, how many psychotherapists does it take to change a guitar string? The answer being?
Not sure. Something to do if it's ready to make the change.
One. But the string has to want to change.
That's it, yeah.
Anyways, okay, so I got that out of the way, so no more corny jokes. But congratulations on that.
Thank you. Yeah. And so, I suppose the Blackfires will, keep doing what we're doing. We've been lucky to open for a lot of our influences. We played with Europe, Final Countdown fame, Scott Gorham's band from Thin Lizzy, obviously.
Well, it's good you've kept up with the guitar, in case the psychotherapy thing doesn't turn out. You have something to fall back upon.
Exactly. It's a good backup, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was nice to meet Scott Gorham and, chat with him. Snake Sabo from Skid Row, really nice guy.
Wow.
We got to play with Brad Whitford's side project recently, Whitford St. Holmes. Yeah, recently we've seemed to have befriended David Bryan, actually, from Bon Jovi. Absolute legend, really, really nice, welcoming guy. Got to jam with him and Matt O'Ree recently. Matt O'Ree's a guitar player in his own right, but then recently went on tour with Bon Jovi. Incredible player. And,
I actually saw a lot of those photographs on Facebook. Yeah,
nice enough to get me on stage and try and cut heads with him, which is pretty difficult, obviously, because he's incredible. But
Wow.
So we had some fortunate experiences.
Well, we're lucky to have you. What guitar did you bring?
I brought this one. You can see it's a Joe Perry signature. So this one I think they made back in the late 90s. I just started playing guitar, and was a big Aerosmith fan, and
It's a Gibson Les Paul.
That's right, yeah.
Joe Perry's signature. Mm-hmm. But it really has a signature, and it has all kinds of scribblings on it.
Yeah, exactly. So this was my dad's idea. I'm, forever thankful for him. He knew that I wanted a Joe Perry signature, Gibson, if we could get a hold of one. Now, being in England, it was more difficult, and there's a lot more taxes and stuff. He somehow, this was back in the day of dial-up internet, found one in New York that had been used by Joe.
Daddy, what's dial-up internet? Can you believe it's that old?
AOL, yeah, exactly. If there's anyone listening that doesn't know what that is. But yeah, found one in New York of all places, and it had been used and signed by the whole band. This was a whole surprise that he, flew across, got it, and for a fraction of the price that you would actually get an unsigned, unused one in the UK, because obviously we like to tax the hell out of things.
Yeah, the VAT and.
I mean, the Queen doesn't know when her next palace, where it is or where it's coming from. So you gotta make the citizens suffer, I guess. But yeah, then obviously what a kind of augury that we would get this guitar when I was about 16, and then 15 years later end up getting to open for them. I mean, it was it's kind of for me anyway, a nice story.
Well, hopefully whatever they have is contagious, because now I'm touching it too.
Yeah.
Well, good. And then for me, I thought I'd sort of try to make things poetic here. I'm playing a Les Paul copy that comes from Leeds, England. It's actually made by the Vintage Company, by the John Hornby Skews Company and Limited.
Oh, wow.
Who make, in my opinion, the best knockoff guitars. I mean, if you want to knock off Gibson or SG, Telecaster, Stratocaster, right down the line. And why is it? Because when they list all the materials, everything's made out of real wood, not particle board. It's real maple. They use the real materials. But so pretty much for, depending on the model, you get between 250 to 300 British pounds. You get it, and it's sturdy as.
Yeah, it looks great.
Sturdy as hell. I'll let you play it once we put some new strings on it.
Yeah.
But the story is, I got this last year from a friend of mine's shop in Detroit, Showtime Detroit. They've been clothing entertainers since 1989. So if you're any kind of rock and roll artist, when you go through, his whole place is like a rock and roll museum. You name the band, they got to stop by Showtime to pick up something, because every decade is represented if you need that, that kind of gear, clothes, whatever. And he also sells all kinds of stuff that's on the periphery of rock and roll. Like he has a small collection of instruments, and why would he want to sell real instruments? But where else can you go get like a vintage from Leeds, or something?
Yeah, that's
these
really
little
cool.
off things he has. Hi, Showtime, if you're listening. He's closed down his shop temporarily as he moves to a new location, so we're looking forward to that. But when I was doing Tilted Axes in Detroit, I picked this up last time. It rocks and it rolls. So why don't we change our strings?
Let's do it. Let's see if I can. If I can. I've never been good at it, 15 years trying, but we'll give it a go.
Well, if we need to, we'll resort to the time-lapse photography.
Exactly.
There you go.
So you loosen, right, before you start cutting?
I myself have been talking to all different players. I sort of don't take off all the strings at once, because I want to keep some kind of tension.
Right, for the stop bar as well, for the Les Paul, too. If you loosen them all, it'll actually come off.
Yeah, it actually comes off, then it becomes a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But I will loosen them up to some degree, and I usually like changing the two center strings first. I sort of go from the center to the center on out, depending.
I've heard that that's kind of similar to, in terms of tension, like a piano, you tune the middle first and then you go out. Mm-hmm. And actually, when I've had the fortunate experience of chatting and jamming with Eric Johnson a couple of times, and he actually tunes his guitar that way. He'll tune the D and the G first and then go outwards. So it makes sense you're taking them off that way as well, I guess.
Do you remember the first piece of music that you heard that really sparked your imagination? Like, hey, I think I could do that, or the first piece of music that you really felt?
My brother got me Appetite for Destruction. That was my first CD.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously Slash, has that inimitable tone. Obviously, Izzy Stradlin as well.
Right.
But yeah, some of those solos, some of the kind of seventh bluesy stuff he's doing on Welcome to the Jungle kind of really captured my imagination. He does some interesting stuff with the slide past the fretboard. So
what'd you say, Guns N' Roses still and always going to be their best album, that first album?
I mean, it's one of them, but I do actually really like Use Your Illusion 1 and 2. 2, I think I lean more towards. There's a couple of songs like Locomotive on there that's just, kind of relentless in terms of guitar. If you've ever tried to play it from start to finish, I mean, it's just rhythm and lead. It's just incredible. But yeah, that kind of moved me. The intro, Sweet Child of Mine, I mean, people might say, oh, that's popular, it's cliched, but there's a reason. I mean, does the string
wonderful.
skipping, it stops you, and you think, oh, that sounds fucking cool. Everyone shut up, I'm listening to that,
Oh, I've created a patch on one of my virtual amplifier things, just to be able to play that perfectly, just to capture that
for
tone.
The tone,
yeah.
right.
Because the tone is fantastic, because it's really like, it's hard to tell if it's one of those pieces like, did he come up with the riff and then develop the tone, or did he develop the tone and then it just lent itself towards a certain combination of notes, like sometimes certain tones do?
Well, I think it's the bridge pickup that he's using, and then even I think he talks about he was just fucking around. I mean, he says he doesn't practice, But, some kind of string skipping thing, and I think Axel heard it and said, "Oh, keep doing that." Whereas for him, it was just a, off the cuff kind of thing.
Right. Then the bass player's like, hey, it works under the 1 chord and the 4 chord, and a pattern begins to emerge.
I don't know if Duff McKagan said that, but he maybe thought of it.
I like a lot of these classic tones, and I have a lot of virtual amps with my Line 6 that you plug into the computer, and then you can create I want this kind of cab, I want this effect pedal and all that. And I go to those websites like liverigs.com where they show you what rig this guitar is using, and I can recreate the rig that they've used on a particular song. So even though I like Tilted Axis to play my convoluted kind of music, maybe classical contemporary new music riffs in 7/4, but I want the Sweet Child of Mine sound to go with it, because that's really what we're deconstructing, So that's been a lot of fun too. So I've just learned a lot about what these guys have used and how a lot of these things came about. So that one grabbed your ear then.
Yeah, definitely. And then maybe even a little bit before, I think some of the Dire Straits stuff, because my dad was big into that too. Money for Nothing, that tone. Mm-hmm. And I've heard that he apparently had heard Billy Gibbons' tone and wanted to find out how he got that. Not sure that he got an answer or something, but kind of figured out how to, leave a wah in a fixed position, a wah pedal, and played it on a Les Paul. And you hear that intro for Money for Nothing, and that guitar riff comes in, and it is great with his fingers and the natural harmonics. Yeah, so I think that was another one.
But he's a Strat man, right?
I think for the most part.
So so he does that with a single coil guitar. We always remember our first guitar. What was your first guitar?
First guitar was, I think, D'Angelo, an acoustic. My dad, I think, got it in Stoke-on-Trent. He used to travel a lot for business, and he was, these are, in his words, he's like, I'm thinking, fuck, what do I get him for his birthday? And then happened to look, and he was parked outside a music shop, and thought, oh, well, he's obviously been into guitar music for a long time.
Right. Well, how old were you?
I was about 15 or 16.
Okay.
So it was that birthday, and then got me this acoustic. I think he had got a picture chords book, but I couldn't read music either, and so I was a bit daunted by it. And I think I remember it was sitting in the corner for a few months, and my mum said, "Oh, your dad got you that guitar. Have you played it?" And in typical adolescent fashion, I was like, "Oh, fucking hell, Mum, what am I going to do with that?" Which she didn't really deserve. So, sorry, Mum, if you're listening. I shouldn't have responded that way. I was just feeling insecure at that moment. But yeah, then I had a couple of mates who had happened to start playing the guitar at the same time and said, "Oh, you don't need to read music. There's this wonderful thing called tablature." So then I was off to the races. I can count, I can read numbers, and that was it. And through that, and then playing by ear.
I've always had mixed feelings about that. If you're going to take the time to read tablature, why don't you know how to read music? I don't see there to be much of a difference.
There isn't. I suppose you need some kind of
except
education.
That people feel like, oh, I know what numbers are, so they feel automatically more comfortable with it because they could recognize that. But
yeah, I think there's something to it that's somewhat more specialized. So that was still on an acoustic. They had electrics that I did borrow. But then I actually think that helped me because if I was on an acoustic, the strings were thicker, you've got less, it's not amplified. So you have to learn to be cleaner, I think. So by the time I got my first electric, I think I don't know if I had stronger fingers or whatever, but I think it helped that I started on an acoustic.
Yeah, I would still do a lot of work with the acoustic in the guitar circles of Robert Fripp these days. Because, as they say, you can really disguise a poor right-hand technique on electric guitar, but when
you can't on an acoustic, right?
But on an acoustic you can't, because that's really...
Because the sound
that's what's making
stops.
The sound. Yeah. With enough gain and compression, you can play guitar with your left hand alone.
Yeah, you're right.
Then your first electric?
That was a I don't know if they're Canadian. It was a Godin. Do you remember those guys? If they're still going, or if
Yes, they're still golden.
Godin. And then it was a radiator, so it was pearloid. The pick guard was massive. It covered pretty much the entire guitar, maybe half an inch.
Well, usually guitars, I think it's fair to say, sort of lean towards copying a Les Paul or a Stratocaster. Which direction did this one go?
Maybe more Les Paul, thinner, but had kind of a different shape. It was a single cutaway, but with the colours as well, kind of that surfy kind of feel, like airliner.
Yeah.
Similar to that. And sort of had the kind of bright blue.
They used a lot of 1950s American automobiles had these colors back then, and all the guitar manufacturers copied those colors.
Yeah, so I think that was the idea behind these as well. So that was the first one, and still have it.
Okay.
Don't really play it that much. It's got the pickups are kind of like toasters.
Right.
If you look at them,
like a Dan Electro.
Yeah.
So how's your strings doing there, Anthony? I got 3.
I've changed all of them, but they're not in tune yet. Maybe one of them. We'll see. On a Tuesday, I play with Strange Magic. We do basically originals and old school blues tunes, Robert Johnson, Muddy Waters, people like that. And that's at Bell Rev in Tribeca. It's on the corner of Church and Walker, 10 p.m. until really late. We always play in standard, so as I asked you, that reminded me because I always end up having to tune my guitars from Blackfires do E flat, Blues Tuesday we do standard. Bands like Guns N' Roses played E flat. Metallica on the Load and Reload records were in E flat. Way before that, I mean Hendrix, Voodoo Child's E flat, right? Mm-hmm. Stevie Ray Vaughan favored E flat on some. The Texas Flood record, definitely. It does give it a different feel. Slightly darker, I don't know.
Yeah, it's conceived that lower in pitch is always darker. And
yeah. All right, so we're all in tune, but I know they need stretching.
So I'd have to ask you, and how does getting a doctorate in psychotherapy fit into this rock and roll world upon which you dwell?
Oh, I don't know if it fits, how well it fits. I think there is some kind of relationship. It's something I've always been interested in. Obviously wanted to go to university. My school offered psychology. This is back in England for the first time. Did it. Got my best grade in it, so I thought, okay, well, that makes sense. I'll get my bachelor's in it. And then realised, as most people do, I think, you can't do anything with a bachelor's degree in psychology. So to get taken seriously, I thought, well...
You could have a TV show.
Yeah, I could, yeah, exactly. And call myself a doctor. Dr. Phil, maybe.
I'm not a real doctor, though I play one on TV.
Exactly. So yeah, chose to get a doctorate. I think it's something I'd always wanted to do. And so that either leans towards research or practical kind of work. I've kind of like both, doing research and also working with people,
Have you heard of these practitioners who've offered group therapy for bands so they can help control the group dynamics in the band, so at least everybody could understand what was going on?
I have. I mean, I've seen that in some, Metallica's movie, some kind of monster, documentary, I suppose we'd call it. But yeah, I do think group dynamics are really interesting. So there's a way that there's some overlap, especially where I did my training. The ways that we communicate, and we're not even aware that we're doing it, and these unspoken rules that you inflict or subject to or agree to implicitly without even thinking about it, and all that kind of stuff. Social
contract to which we silently subscribe.
Yeah, that kind of thing. You've maybe just given me an idea in case I need another revenue stream. There we go. I could look into that.
Well, I've been interested in various aspects of psychotherapy too, or at least, should I say that I feel like my life became easier once I understood what certain emotions were,
Right.
like what anger is. And
I've heard of that one.
The definition I use is, whether it's based in reality or not, it's a sense of injustice. You feel,
that's fair.
you've been wronged somehow, and whether it's like I said, whether you truly have been wronged or something you're imagining, that's where the sense is coming from. So anytime I feel angry, I have to ask myself,
Is it justified?
what do I think is I've been wronged about, as opposed to just giving in to the emotion itself and just I'm pissed, I'm fucking pissed, So if I give myself pause for that, and sometimes you actually find you have every reason to be upset because somebody has pretty much
Someone has done something.
done something not on the up and up.
So that's how you do it. So you measure the length and then
It's always like 2 inches beyond.
all right.
And then just crimp it, and then it just
And then
wraps around. And of course, the thinner the string, the longer you can make it. Except of course now that you're staring at me.
well, no, I'm just trying to learn because I do it where I keep it the same length and I'll follow it. Obviously, put it in the saddle, wrap it around, and then push the loops down and then pull it through the hole. Put a kink in it, then tighten it. Obviously, sometimes that doesn't work because then the loops kind of fall off and then you have to do it. But that's how I've always done it.
I always hold my breath when it gets close. I don't know why. And I
think we all do that.
And I say this every show. It's like, because you don't read on the front of the paper like musician's face slashed open by tuning his E string too fast. Because if that was really a danger.
Does that ever happen to you? Because I actually did put my face too close once, and it didn't slash me, but it did hit me in the face, and
I could see it's
worried.
definitely like scratching a cornea or something.
Yeah.
If it got too close.
People don't really know the struggles musicians go through, but this is another one that people don't know about. It's the strings. They hurt your fingers.
That's why the show was created, so
we could
we change our strings and talk about those kinds of things.
Yeah, the plight that we go through. There we go.
I still need to set up, but so how are your strings feeling? Are they
New.
nice and stretched?
Thanks to Dario. These are great. XLs. And they look colourful. You can't see that on the radio, but yeah, I just always like looking at the...
Well, I will tell you that we both
through
put
the
on
stop
a
bar.
set of the Dario 11s today. Mm-hmm. And there you go. And so what do you say? Should we put these
Test them
strings
out.
to their paces?
I will do my best.
Okay. Hey, thanks for being on the show, Anthony.
No, thank you. Yeah, thanks for having me.
Give my best to the Blackfires.
Will do.
And if people want to find out more about you, the Blackfires, or any kind of musical activities you got coming up, where should they go?
Obviously, all the usual stuff. Facebook.com/theblackfires, all one word. At the Blackfires. You can even hear I'm doing the at the end, because if I say Blackfires, people are like Blackfires, the Blackflies. I mean, yeah. So the Blackfires.
So you have to say it. So you have to say it like you're Irish, then.
Yeah. So at the Blackfires, theblackfires.com, Facebook.com/theblackfires. Yeah. Look out for some new dates coming soon. We're going to be in the studio recording, but yeah, this summer we'll be playing out.
Looking forward, man.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's all we have time for today. Thanks for joining us. Our guest has been Anthony Mullin, and you can find out more about him and his band at theblackfires.com, or you can visit our website at stringsandthingsshow.com. Special thanks to Vox Amps USA, to Dario Strings, and Electro-Harmonics New York City. I'm Jocelyn Gonzalez on the Zeros and Ones, and Patrick Grant is our host and axe wrangler. Strings and Things is a Pepper Green production for Headstepper Media. See you next time.